Hey folks, Coach back at you. Yeah, I guess there's always a question about whether if the glide is better than the rotation or the rotation is better than the glide. So let's have a look at two of the top shot putters in the world. Let's look at David Storl of Germany on your left, and we'll have a look at Thomas Walsh from New Zealand on your right. Arguably two great shot putters. And what's interesting is David on your left from Germany. He's one of the very few guys that actually shifts or glides across the circle. You know, if you look at some of the top meets in the world, most all of our throwers now, male throwers, typically are spinners, and it's a very interesting shift from the glide technique to the rotational technique. But let's just have a look at both of them, and we'll sync them together, and then we'll kind of look at some of the pros and the cons of both techniques, and I'll make some comments as to how things go in this event. So I'm just going to play here. This is a throw from a Diamond League event in 2018, this spring. So let's roll it. And I picked it up and I synced it out of their power position. So we backed it up, and you can see almost immediately that over here Thomas has initiated his throw before David has actually really got into the full push out of the back. And Thomas has already initiated at the back, which tells us one thing right away, that in his particular style or technique, he's able to start his throw a lot earlier, obviously getting more momentum on the shot or body momentum so that he can put into the throw. So let's have a look at it right now. Here, let's have a look. So we're just going to let it run. They hit the power position and they get equally there. There's the results right there. Obviously, Thomas threw it out a bit further, 22 meter 60, and David threw it out 21.33. So two great results. But let's go back and analyze this from a coaching perspective. So we're just gonna bring it right back to the beginning, and I'm just gonna really back it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move things along, and I apologize to the viewers. When we split screen, we're unable to kind of use some lines on over here with Thomas Walsh. Dave, I'm able to do it. I'm not exactly sure. It's in the program itself. When we split screen, I can only do one side or the other, and in this case, it will be David. So let's have a look at a couple things here as we kind of move through this analysis. And you can see both are really in a very good start power position. And as we kind of move through the throw, both are trying to initiate to try to get into the center of the circle. Both are right-handed throwers, so therefore they're going to land with the right foot in the middle of the circle or near middle of the circle. So we're really almost into the power position here. And what's very interesting is if you look at this, there is not a lot of difference, is there? When you kind of look at it from a power position standpoint, I mean, there's subtle differences. I mean, obviously Dave's, he's a linear thrower, and Thomas is a spinner. But when you think about it, the position of their feet are relatively the same. They're a little bit more than shoulder width apart. Dave's a little bit more to the left center of the toe board, and as you look over here, you can see Thomas is offset to the left, and that's due in part a lot because he's a spinner out of the back and he ends up in this position. But ultimately, you can see here there's where their position of their arms are, and if you can just have a look at it here, we've got this position right here. And you can see over here the same with Thomas. One very interesting thing, however, is if we look at the hips. And you'll notice Dave's are a little bit closed at this position, and you'll notice Thomas's is already all around. And although the foot seems to be in the relatively same position here, you can see that his hip has come around a little bit quicker. So I'll just move it a little bit further ahead. And here's the strike position. And you can see both the boys have a fairly good position with regard to blocking that left side. So you can see down here, there's a fair good block here by Dave. All his left side's blocking. Very, very good position here. Nice block all to that left side for the right-handed thrower. And yeah, some relatively good stuff. He's now going to take that left foot and bring it up front to post and to prevent him from going over the toe board. And if you can look over here in the spinning position, it's much, much more dynamic. And what I mean is there's a lot more momentum in this particular event. And as you can see over here in this particular style, his left arm here is, but for him, that's not so bad. His whole left side's kind of as stiff as he can possibly can get as he strikes the shot of the right. Now, if we just move it slightly more ahead, get rid of some of that, as we move it a little bit forward for both of them, you can see that one of the interesting situations is they end up very much in that save position with their right side. If you can look at this, the ball height out of their hand is higher, and the reason is Dave is 6'6". He's 199 centimeters tall, so he's going to have a slightly higher release. And Thomas over here is only 6'1". They're relatively about the same weight, about 263 to 268 pounds. So, that's roughly 120 kilograms, 123 kilograms, respectively. So you can see in this particular regard, it looks like for all intents and purposes, when they get to that power position and the release position, it's very much the same, isn't it? It looks really cool. So as we come through, it's just a recovery position for both of them. And of course, for Dave, he's a more linear thrower, so therefore there's not much rotation out of the back. And of course, Thomas is spinning, and he's just trying to continue his spin momentum to save the throw. A little bit closer up on the board as he turns around, but nevertheless he gets 22 meters 60, which is an area record for this wonderful athlete from New Zealand. And for David Storl, he's a great throw, 21.33. Both have bests over 22 meters, so they're in the same kind of level for sure. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, do these two different techniques actually, is one better than the other? And here's just my own opinion about this. Number one, if you're going to start with a rotational shot put, start them really young. Don't try to convert someone who for several years has been a shifter, and all of a sudden now they're they're going to be a rotator. I would advocate, if you're going to rotate young, and definitely for the coaches, start them off there. But if you are a glider, continue to glide. If you've been doing it for years, continue to glide. But it seems like obviously the consensus, and if you look at just the data itself, there's no doubt that rotating the shot put, although a bit of a more unstable position, seems to produce the bigger throws. Although the shot or the glide is a much more consistent method of throwing, right? Both produce great throws, but it seems like the rotational shot has a very slight edge in terms of the rotational capacity. So, they generate more momentum on the shot for greater speed and greater distance. The other thing, it's very interesting to note, some of the tall shot putters tend to gravitate more towards the glide. Jeski's a very good example, this two-time Olympian. David won a silver medal in 2012 in the Olympic Games on your left using the glide. But as far as the shot put, the rotational technique, Thomas is clearly the best thrower in the world the last couple of years. And if you look at it historically speaking, it seems like those spinners have a bit of an advantage. So there's my opinion, there's my bias, but nevertheless a fairly good look at these guys throwing the shot put. And it's an exciting event. Either way, they produce some very good results. We hope this was of some information. If you have any comments below or you'd like to have any questions, please enter them at the bottom, and have a great upcoming season here in 2019, and throw far.